Assalamu alaikum everybody, am I audible? Walaikum assalam. Can any of you kindly just go and text in the CS group the link of the stream and also at the same time, Assalamu alaikum everybody, and we call it, tell everybody that we are just starting off with the paper so that if anybody hasn't joined as of now, they can also join in. Today is going to be the last class for our May-June 2026 session. Last marathon, maybe uh, last official class for the registered students. And yes, it was low-key very fun. And I have my entire lecture in English, buddy. I don't speak in Urdu. I'm doing great, Alhamdulillah. How is everybody doing? So yeah, let's start off with the content without wasting any further time. We have our elections for student council up here in my university. But yeah, I was like, let's conduct the class and we're gonna think about elections later on, okay? So I don't know what's happening, but yeah, I just wanted to cover up the content first. I want every one of you to understand what's happening, how to do it the right way. And apparently, I haven't solved this 15 marker before ever. This will be my first time solving it alongside you guys to ensure how to do it, what's going to be the priority and everything, right? So you're going to ensure that everything is fine. And let me just load up the paper and then we can start off, okay? So apparently this question seemed to be very difficult, okay? I'm not sure though, let's read it together, but it seemed to be very challenging. But afterwards, when the threshold came up, it came out that many people, even though they thought that it's going to be very tough, the logic which a lot of people basically put into the question, the examiner did award that to a very good extent. So like a lot of students did get very good marks in this paper. And I'm not sure the why. It might be like maybe the first 60 mark part was very easy or something of that sort. But let's just start off without wasting any further time. Let's jump into the course content and ensure we are good to go. So let me just start screen sharing. And you're sharing very good marks in this paper. And I'm not sure the why. It might. All right, so you would be able to see the screen at this point. My phone is literally dead at this point, so I might not be able to see your chat messages that regularly. I'm gonna try to have a look at it, but yeah. Sir, will you be uploading two fully solved past paper? I will try, inshallah. Say, I want to have a gaming session with you after the exams. Of course, let's get into some game, but I'm low-key very bad at games at this point. I haven't played it for years. Still, I might be somewhat good at FIFA, and maybe if anybody wants to come up in a challenge for Hitman, I'm up for that too. Okay, Fortnite, I'm like a very bad player. But let's start off without wasting any time. The question says that it's a 15 marker, that 115 marker, which a lot of people have been crying about, and which was sort of a very unique 15 marker in terms of that never has been such a question tested before, right? So let's start off. Bismillah. So a one-player game uses the two-dimensional array grid to store the location of a secret cell to be found by the player in 10 moves. Okay, so it's gonna be a 2D array where a player has to find something where the maximum moves they can take are 10 moves, and that each row and column has 5 cells. Makes sense. So you're gonna start up here. This is like a 2D array which has like 5 cells, 5 rows, and then 5 columns. And a person is going to start up here. It might be going here, here, I don't know, here, wherever, but there will be some secret value somewhere which you need to find. But the part is that this finding this what do we call it, secret string needs to be done, or secret cell, within 10 moves. Okay, that's clear. Moving on, the question then says at the start of the game, the program places an X in a random cell, which is not in the very first location of the user. So like it's not going to be at the starting point, which is my start position, grid 1 1, but anywhere else they can put an X character anywhere randomly, and then it empties all the other cells in the grids. Then you start up at the very top left and you have 10 moves. Okay, So the player can move left, right, up, down by one cell with the move must be within the grid. So like you're gonna start up here. What the question is trying to tell us is that we're gonna start up at this point. When the program starts, it's randomly gonna put the value X somewhere, maybe up here. And now you have 10 moves. In those 10 moves, you can make a move towards this side. You can make a move towards this side. Of course, if your particle or this position is at this point, you can also go upwards, left, right, and bottom. But the point is that the total number of moves you can take are 10 on, not more than that. So then it says that you win is displayed if the player moves to the cell with X as the character and has played 10 moves or less. So like for example, somebody uses this logic that they come from downwards, one move, second move, third move, one move, one move. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you within 5 moves, you reached X. So you found the character X within the 5 moves. This means you win. And for example, you lose if the player has made 10 moves without finding the X. For example, I made something like this. I went like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I did not find it. So every time what I can do is that for every move I take, this 10 could be reduced by 1. So it could become 9, 9 could become then 8 for the next move. And this is going to continue. If it becomes 0, and I haven't said you win till this point, this means I am out of moves. And if I'm out of moves and I haven't found the final result, this is a clear indicator that, okay, boss, I'm sort of cooked because I'm unable to find it up. Okay. So what the question then says that you need to write a program that meets these requirements. You must use pseudocode or program code and add comments to explain how your code works. You do not need to declare any array or variables because you may assume that this has already been done. And any input or output must contain suitable message. So our tasks in this program are going to be that first and foremost, we're going to be creating a situation where I need to basically first initialize the entire array with empty set, because the question says that all the other places will be empty. So what I can do is I can basically initialize it empty, and then I can sort of create a random variable, a random number, and basically in that random number I can store the value, okay, the value X. So first and foremost thing is that I need to start setting up the game. So I can maybe add a comment. So I can say setting up the grid. Setting up the grid. So because the question clearly mentions that every place apart from the X variable would be empty. So what we can do is we can first create a set which has everything empty, nothing inside it at all, like literally very empty. And then at one position we can sort of create a random variable value. So we can use the random function to create a random row number, and then we can use the random function to, let's say, create a random column number, and then we can put the variable X at that specific random row and random column number. Okay, so let's set it up with empty list at this point. So how will I do that? Easy scene. I know how many rows I have 5 rows. Okay, so you're just sort of initializing a 2D array. This has been discussed in my notes too. What you just need to do is we might do something like for row. So you're going to start for the rows. For row, how many rows do we have? We are starting from 1. Why am I starting from 1? Because this clearly mentions that the first one is basically row. So where first row number is 1 and this is column. So like a lot of you usually use 0 for row and 0 for column. Like some people do that too. So remember that you cannot initialize it with 0 0 up here just because they clearly mentioned that the first position is 1 1. So you're going to start from 1. Then we have 5 rows. So I'm going to say from row 1 to 5. And then at the same time, you're going to do it for the column. So for column 1 to 5, the array name is basically grid. So every position in the grid needs to be initialized with what? Empty string. So I would be like, okay, you go to the grid. Oh, my bad. So you go basically to the grid part, grid, and in that grid, you go to the row number, whatever the respective row number is, and then you go to the respective column number. And whatever that place is, in that place, you basically put what? You put an empty string. So you're going to add a comment next to it, empty string. Empty string, just to indicate that okay, there is nothing upside here. Right now we are just setting up the whole grid. We don't want anything to be basically brought into this place. Okay, so we're not bringing it and anything, we are not doing anything of that, so we're just putting the data inside. Sir, why 5? Because we know that the row number of rows and the number of columns are 5. You see, each row and column has 5 cells, so there are 1 2 3 4 5 columns and 1 2 3 4 5 rows. So 5 rows, so 1 to 5 for rows, and 5 columns, so 1 to 5 for columns. So let's say we had 7 columns, so then in that case we would have done 4 columns 1 to 7, because we would have 7 columns. Because we only have 5 columns up here, we're going to use from 1 to 5 for columns, and at the same time 1 to 5 for rows. Now we are sort of done with initializing this. So of course, whenever we are initializing it, the next step would be next column, and then of course we're going to end it with what? Next row. Next row. Now what's happening is that we have sort of implemented a model where supposedly we are basically creating a place where we have nothing inside it, but rather everything is empty. Okay, so you may assume every place up here is empty string, empty string, empty string, empty string, and so on. It's like empty string literally everywhere. Okay, so let me just remove this and I can copy this part then. So let's assume all this is just empty. So you might copy this part. We have it up here, then we have it up here, then we have it up here, and of course then it's going to be up here at the end too. And now what's the thing is that among all these empty slots, we now need to generate, can we do column first? Yes, of course. If you want to go column 1 to 5 and then row 1 to 5, that's also fine, but it's better to go with the row first, because you always have it, or like you can, of course you can do it either way, it doesn't matter that much. Okay, so now what's going to happen is that in this grid, this is totally empty. We now need to generate a random row. Okay, so I need to generate a random row, and then I need to basically generate a random column number, I know that what are the limits in which I can generate the row. So I can generate a row between what? Between 1 and 5, so that I have a row number between 1 and 5. So I'm going to generate a random number for row between 1 and 5. Similarly, I'm going to generate a random column number between what? 1 and 5. And then in the grid position, whatever the random row number is and the random column number, I'm going to put the value there. So I might go to grid, let's say random row, our row is random row, and then I go to random col, which is random column, and at that random position, because the program said that the letter X is going to be stored, I might say that okay, I'm going to put X character there. Okay, so I might put what? I'm going to just put the X character up here. Another point here to notice, which I sort of made a mistake, is that if I look up here, this could be seen that it's a character. How do I know it's a character? Because it's only making use of a single quotation marks. Single quotation mark means that it's character. So if this X is character, then I will not be doing double quotation marks up here to indicate that it's a string. I'm just going to put single quotation marks, so that it's only an empty, and I can write empty character, or you can even say null character if you want to say it. Okay, but this is to indicate that it's a character. If you put double quotation marks, that's going to be string. I made a video on this too, that when you make use of what do we call it, double quotation marks for a question which expects you to do single quotation marks, you're going to lose marks. So keep this in your mind. Okay, keep this in your mind. So now what you're going to do is we need to now generate the random value, random row and random column number. So again, by the way, this question isn't that difficult. I thought it's going to be even more challenging, but yeah, it seems to be easy, mashallah. So random row and column generation, So now if I have to generate a random row and a random row column number, how do I create a random number? We all know this pretty much very easily. What I'm going to do is I know one thing, that I need to keep on repeating this until one condition happens. They say that the program can place X everywhere except for not in grade 1, which basically means that if my program out of nowhere generates a random number for row to be as 1 and random number for column to be as 1, 2, then that's a problem. Because the program clearly mentioned that it could not be in this. So what I can do is I can just sort of make a validation check that you need to keep on repeating You need to keep on repeating until I say that the random row that is not equal to 1 and your random column that is also not equal to 1, because if it is equal to 1 then that's a problem, because if it's equal to 1 then this means that okay, there is this issue that okay boss, I am producing a random number which is going to put it at the very starting position. So what we need to now do up here is we need to implement a repeat until logic. How do I make use of a repeat until? Very straightforward, nothing complex at all. I'm going to write the repeat first. So I'm going to say repeat, and inside repeat I now need to generate two random values. So one value could be, let's say, a random column. Okay, so I might do something like random row, r row, indicating that it's a random row. And whenever I want to generate a random number, whenever I want to generate the random number, remember the logic behind this is that you make use of the function random. Okay, random basically generates a value between 0 and 1. People usually do not understand this concept. It generates a value between 0 and 1. Then what you do is you multiply this value by whatever range you want. So like, let's say I want to generate the value between 0 and 5. Now this could generate anything, okay? 0 0.2, 0 0.5, 0 0.8, 1, and even 0. So when we multiply this with something like, let's say 4, now what's the range? So it's going to be like, let's say it generated 0. So 0 into 4 is 0. Then 0 into 0, 4 into 0 0.2 is what? 4 into 0 0.2 is basically, let me check, I guess it's 0 0.8, right? So yeah, it's 0 0.8. So I get 0 0.8 to be generated randomly. What if I multiply 4 with 0 0.5? 0 0.5 multiplied by 4 is 2. Then 0 0.8 multiplied by 4 might be something like, okay, let's recheck. So it's going to be 3.2. So you see, we are sort of generating random values, but we don't need these decimal values at all, right? We need them to be in whole form. So what we can do is we can generate this part, and then we can round this to one decimal part, so that if it generates something like 3.2, I can round it off to 3. So I'm gonna round the answer of whatever random into 4 is gonna give me to one decimal point. And now I'm gonna get my values to be like 0, 1, 2, 3, and of course, what's the largest value a random function can generate? What's the largest value? The largest value a random function can always generate is a 1. So like, it's the maximum it can generate is a 1. What is 1 multiplied by 4? It's 4. So you see that this function at this point generates the values between 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But the problem is I want my values to be generated between 1 and 5. I don't want it to be between 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I can do is that whatever the answer it's going to give me, why not add 1 into it externally? So that if it, let's say gives me the value as 0, 0 plus 1 makes it 1. So like the least value now, which could have been 0 from this part, it now becomes 1. Then if it generated 1, it is going to add 1 into it, it's going to generate randomly 2. If it was 2, it's going to give me 3. If it was 3, it's going to give me 4. And if it was 4, it's going to give me 5. And you can see now I'm going to be able to have a random value generated between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now you understand that's the logic behind why when the question asks you always to create a random number, we use the random function, we multiply that by the number which we want, we round that to one decimal place, and of course we then add 1 externally if I want to make it between 1 to that. Is this clear, everybody, or not? Is this clear or not? I want everybody to first and for, oh, perhaps my bad. I made this one mistake. This is going to be 0. Yes, you guys are correct. Because 1 would mean that I'm trying to round it off to 1 decimal place. 0 would mean that I want to make it to 0 decimal place. Like there is no decimal place existing at all. Why don't we multiply it by 5? Because if you multiply that by 5, then your range is going to become 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't want this 1 in this. So now when I add 1 into this range, if I add 1 into this, now my range becomes as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but also at the same time 6. But the problem is that I can maximum have how many grids? I can maximum have 5 rows and maximum have 5 columns. So because I cannot exceed that range, that's the logic behind it. So that is why we are making use of this part of it, the random 4 being rounded off generates the values between 0 and 4, but because the question expects us to have the values between 1 and 5, what we do is that into this 0 1 2 3 4 we add a 1, and this makes the values to be like 0 plus 1, which is the smallest possible value, is going to be 0, right? So 0 plus 1, so the smallest value becomes as 1. Similarly, second smallest, 1 plus 1 2, then 3 plus 1 4, 4 plus 1 5, and you see that I get the range between exactly the way I want it. Zero होगा, zero होगा, zero होगा. I don't get why you went W into 4. So guys, W into 4 तो मैंने किया ही नहीं है. So basically what I want to do up here is that this random function, we know that random function does what? It generates a random value between 0 and 1. It could be 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, and so on. And the smallest this could generate is a 0. The largest it could generate is a 1. So when you multiply and in between it could be anything. Let's say it generates 0. So when I want my range to be between 0 and 4, I'm going to multiply the value generated by random with that number. So for example, 0 multiplied by 4 is going to give me the smallest value, which is 0. Let's say 0.5 is the randomly value generated. You multiply that by 4, it gives me the value 2. The largest it could generate is 1, right? Random cannot give a value larger than 1. So 1 into 4 is 4. Similarly, if it was 0.3 something, it might generate something like the value 1. Similarly, 0.8 might give me the value 3. But there is a possibility that they are in decimal points. So 3.2, 4.5, 1.6, 1.8, because it's going to be something like 0.67 into 4. So that might generate something like in decimal point. So what we're going to do is we're going to round that figure. We're going to round that figure to 0 decimal point. So that if it generates something like 3.2, it's going to give me the value 3. But because this random function automatically gives the value between 0 and something, like for example, at this point when I do this, the values that are going to be generated are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But my question expects the values to be between 1 and 5. What we can do is we can basically add 1 into it. So whatever the smallest value is, when you add 1 into the smallest value, like I say that the smallest or the lowest marks you can get are 0. But I say that everybody is going to get 1 extra mark. So what is the lowest number you can get at this point? That if I say that the lowest scorable is 0, but every person in this class is going to get 1 free mark. So the lowest at this point is going to be 1, right? It's going to be 1. So now when it's going to be 1, I can say that 0 plus 1 is going to make it what? It's going to make it 1. Then if let's say this function generates 1, so 1 plus 1 is going to be what? It's going to be 2. So I get 2. Similarly, this might generate something like this part might generate 3. So 3 plus 1 is what? It's going to be 4. Similarly, what if this generates something like 4? 4 plus 1 is what? So this was the largest previously, right? So 4 plus 1 is now going to be 5. And then it does not generate anything after that because it stops at 4. Now, if I made it go till 5, the problem would have been that if it was 5, then there would have been 5 plus 1, 2, which would make it 6. But we don't want it. So we go 1 less than whatever we are trying to go till, and then we add 1 into it. That's how your random function works. So that's the logic behind having this command. Okay, people are like, okay, क्या कहते हैं रट्टा मारना है and ये इस तरह नहीं है, you have to do that. People don't understand. Try to understand the logic after everything you are trying to do. If you don't understand the logic, you'll be cooked then. Why am I putting it in a single quotation marks? Because boss, आप यहाँ पे देखो, the question says that the player moves to the cell with X. You can see X is in single quotation marks. Single quotation marks mean that it's a character. So if something is in single quotation marks, you need to also fill it up with single quotation marks, because this means that the entire array is basically created of the data type character. So it's like all these are like single quotation marks. Okay, you may assume that they are single quotation marks. So yeah. So that's the logic behind it. So for anybody who might still not understand this random function concept, I've sort of explained it pretty well though, but still you can refer to my chapter number 8 videos. Go there, go in the library routine section. I've uploaded a detailed video on this random function explaining every bit of it. So yeah, if you still do not get it, you can reach out in the group later on and we can sort of discuss it, or you can just rewatch the previous 10 minutes and they would be sort of more than enough. Sir, +1 you can fit inside also. No, you cannot do something like within this. So what you need to do is, this is one part and this +1 is separately. So if you do something like random into 4 +1, that will be most probably, okay, that might work too, yeah, but it's better to do it this way. It's better to do it this way. Why? Because the examiner asks you to do it this way. Okay, the examiner asks you to do it this way according to the syllabus. But yes, of course, and if anybody of you might want to make use of it this way, round and let's say random into 4, let's say into 4 plus 1 and then comma 0, that's also perfectly fine. Okay, so you can do it that way too, but this is not going to generate a random row number for me. Similarly, I also need a random column number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now generate a random column number. So I might do something like r col, which is my random column, and in this I'm going to basically again do the same exact thing, maybe round it up, generate a random number. Again, the random number is going to be between 1 and 5. So you're going to multiply that by 4 first. Okay, let's this time do it the other way. So you can write it this way. Let me do it cleanly. So random function, multiply by 4. Then whatever this value generates, you add 1 into it. Okay, so like let's say it generates, the maximum it could generate is 4. So 4 plus 1 is 5. And whatever it gives me, I'm going to round that up to 0 decimal points. So this thing and this thing is 100% identical. Whatever method you might want to go with, it's perfectly fine. It doesn't make any difference at all. Okay, so now you have the random row, you have the random column. The only condition is that if both of them are, let's say 1, random row is 1 and random col, because I just don't want the bit to be at this position. Okay, I don't have the problem with 1 and 1. The problem is that both of them should not be 1. So like if both of them are 1, then you are up here, which is my starting position, which I don't want. So if it's not 1 for row and not 1 for the column, then you should move on. Otherwise you should repeat. So you should keep on repeating. So I might write until up here. So you should keep on repeating until my row, random row, that the value it generates, it's not equal to 1. And at the same time, I say that the random column value which I've generated, r col, that value is also not equal to 1. So now what's this going to do is it's going to create two random values which are not the starting position. And now while I know the values, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the value character x there. So I can say placing x at random location, placing x at random location. So I can now go into the array which had the name of what, grid, I guess. So yeah, it was grid. So inside the grid array, I'm going to go into the grid array. I'm going to go into the row, the random row. Okay, so I'm going to go into the random row. So I might do r row, which is my random row. And then I'm going to go into the random column. So r col. And at that position, I'm basically going to be putting the value x. So doing this will allow me to have basically a random value being placed in that grid array. Okay, so now whatever the random value it generates, maybe it generates something like 3 and 2. Like suppose this is the random value it generated. So now the program is going to go into the third row, which is 1, 2, 3, third row and second column. So it's going to basically change this part. It's basically going to put x up here. Now we need to start the game where I will have 10 moves. The person can move right, left, blah, blah, everywhere. And according to the movement, I'm going to try to find x. If my moves are basically touching 0, this means I'm out of moves and this means you lose. If let's say before you touch 10, if you reach the value x, then you win. How will I check if I have the value? So what I can do is I can basically go through the grid, and I can check that if let's say grid, if I say, let's say, take a move towards the right side would mean that you stay in the same row, but your column value becomes 2. So if I go to 1 and column becomes 2, which means I moved right, I'm going to check, is this equal to x? If it is equal to x, and at the same time, your moves are not equal to 0 at this point, this means that congratulations, you have won. सही है? If not, तो फिर उसके बाद you can make another move. सही है? So sir, can you initialize the x variable in the loop itself? What loop? You might want to do it up here. No, don't do it up here. Do it separately. Because up here you should initialize first the whole grid with empty stuff. So first you're going to set it all empty. So there should be nothing inside it at all. And then after that, you're basically going to create the x value and bring that x value inside it. So that's the logic behind it. Okay. So don't be like, okay, let me do it within the same for loop. That's a bit risky. So now what I'm going to do is I've filled it up and now I'm going to create the variables. So I might have the value max number of moves, max moves. How many max moves do we have? We all know that we have basically 10 maximum moves. Similarly, I know that I'm starting off at what position, or like perhaps what's my current position. So I can say that the current position of player could be player row. So the row number, because we are going to be starting up at what position? We're going to start at position 1 1, right? It has been clearly stated in the question that we are going to start off at this position, start at grade 1 1. So I can say that the player position for row number would be basically 1, and similarly the player position for column number, player column, that's also going to be 1. And let's say we can also have another variable which can count how many moves I have taken. So I can say num moves, which basically indicates how many moves I have basically taken up. And of course, while starting the game, I would have taken how many moves? Definitely, I would have taken 0. I haven't played. And then I can also create a variable found, that if this becomes true, I can say that, okay, I have found the game and I've won. I can directly output 1. If the found stays the false and I say that the number of moves becomes 0, the number of moves becomes 10, I can say that, okay, you're cooked at this point. So okay, so originally we haven't found it, so I can set this value to be as false. Now a lot of this thing cannot even be skipped, so like you're not even required to create found variable, you can do it even without that. That also perfectly works. Okay, but yeah, now what's gonna happen is I can basically make a condition. Okay, so now I can add a comment, game logic. What I can do is that I need to play the game. I will be playing the game until either I can put a while loop and I can say that keep on playing the game, until either found becomes true. So like you can say while not found, which means that while the value of found is basically equal to false, while that is the case, or I say that the number of moves they are basically less than max moves. So number of moves, num moves, are basically less than max moves. Perhaps it should be an and up here, not or, क्योंकि फिर तो एक condition से हो गया. So let's make it and. So it's going to be that while, if I say that the variable has not been found, and at the same time I say, that you haven't basically stated that the number of moves you have carried out. So the number of moves which you have carried out, sir, no repeat, so no sir in repeat loop फिर until मैं verify कर ले. Sir, is there is this question from this is from December 24. Read the title वहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है. So what's happening is that right now we have basically created the array. Now I know that the person is going to start at this position. So I'm going to play the game. Until either I say that I have found the person or found the variable x. So the moment this found becomes true, I say that, okay, I found it, so I should just stop. I should stop, right? Because I found it. Or I'm going to say that I'm going to stop when I have basically made moves which are basically greater than the max I can make. So if I made like 11 moves, this means that, okay, bus, the maximum you could take was 10, game over. So I'm going to say that while these two conditions are not true, like while this value has not been found, and at the same time I say that the number of moves are less than the maximum moves you can take. Number of moves at this point are 0 and maximum are 10. While this condition happens, you should play the game. So how will you play the game? So to start playing the game, what you're going to first and foremost say that you're going to say that, okay, please enter your move. Okay, so we might say that there is something like enter your क्या नाम है, for example क्या बोलेंगे, you need to basically say that enter your move. So you need to set a variable that states enter your move. So I might do something like output, please enter your move. Please enter your move. So now a person can enter 4 moves. You can go left, right, up, or down. So you can say L for left, R for right, U for up, and D for down. Just give me 1 second. I need to place an order. Yeah, what's up, everybody? So we are back. So I had to basically order some food. मैंने नाश्ता नहीं किया था. I had an all-nighter and then I slept and I just woke up and prayed namaz and came for the class. So yeah, I just ordered the food. It was like a Mediterranean sandwich with some juice and extra chicken protein. Yeah, what's up, everybody? So yeah, let's get back to the question. So I'm gonna take all your questions at the end. This is a bit complex, okay? So don't worry. I'm gonna try to first write the code and then I'm gonna explain. So you're gonna first and foremost take an input for left, right, output, and all that stuff. So you're gonna take an input. So yes, so I might say input choice, input choice. But now there's a problem. There's one problem. The choice which the user is going to give me, what if the user enters something like capital U, or they enter something like lowercase u, or they enter something like capital R, or someone enters lower r? So do I need to make it the same for everyone? Like maybe do I need to make the code first for capital U, D, L, R, or and then I need to write code for small l, small r, small u, small d? No, right? So what I can do is that when I'm taking this input, I can automatically on my own basically make that capitalized, for which we have studied a function, a string handling function known as ucase. So what I'm going to do is that whatever the input of user is, whatever the input of this is, you automatically make it capital by basically passing it through ucase. You can either do it this way, or you can take the input for choice and in the next sentence you can do something like choice being assigned with ucase of choice. That's also perfectly fine. Whatever method suits you. These are two similar method, just different implementation. You should be aware of both of them. So these two things are basically 100% identical. Okay, so you take an input and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the respective move based upon whatever the input of the user is. So what's going to be the input? So I'm going to make use of what? I'm going to make use of a repeat loop where let's say I say that if for example I'm going to take the move for one person and then I'm going to repeat that. Based upon that I'm going to do everything else. Okay, so I'm going to take a loop for repeat, and then what I can do is I can make use of a case of statement. I can say case of choice. By the way, till this point, the question before this was very easy. Okay, so if anybody even implements that part properly, you can easily get, if not more, at least 6 to 7 marks. Okay, so you can still get 6 to 7 marks easily by just writing the code till this one, and even though after this you just write random stuff. So CIES, so you understand that it's pretty much very easy to obtain marks. You just need to give it your best. Now what I'm going to choose is that if the person entered something like L, which means that you move to the left side. So if you want to move to the left hand side, left hand side basically means that whatever your current position is, let's say you are at position number 4. Okay, so you're somewhere up here. So if I say left position, this means that my row stays the same, but my column, it basically shifted to 1 less. So what I can do is that I can say that okay, my column has basically reduced by 1, but I cannot make direct reduction in the column, because what if I say I'm already at column number 1 and row number 3? So if I say that move to left, there is nothing on the left hand side. I'm already at the extreme left. So to prevent this situation, we create a temporary variable. That is going to sort of store the value for now. So for example, I can say temporary column, temp column, and in this what I can store the value is temp column is basically going to be temp column, the column, your current column, which is basically player column minus 1. Okay, so you might do player column minus 1, player col minus 1. Similarly, if I let's say that the user input is something like R, so R would mean 1. It's meaning that you're going to go to the right hand side. You're going to go to the right hand side. If you want to go to the right hand side, guys, no questions at this point. Just listen up, and I'm going to explain it to you in a while. Okay, so let me write the code and फिर मैं एक go में explain करता हूँ everything. So you have a temp row, and inside the temporary row, just give me one second. I have my friend calling up. खैरियत है? एक सेकंड. There I have some election work. दोस्त का मैसेज आया हुआ है, so Never mind. So yeah, so if you have row, then you're gonna set the row temporarily. So if you want to make a row move, how will that move? So if you want to make a right side move, oh sorry, again it's going to be temporary column, my bad. Because if you want to make a right side move, this means that left would mean column reduced by one, right would mean column increased by one, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to do player column, and then in player column you're going to add one inside it. So let me just turn off the GoodNotes app. I don't know why is it lagging though. It shouldn't be lagging. So it's sort of lagging for some reason. Let it get load up again. So you open the practice booklet again. Let's redo it from here. Oh, by the way, my laptop is literally fired up at this point. It's so hot. So it's player column plus one at this point. Okay, so did it work? No. So let me just restart the screen sharing. Just give me a second. So yeah. Yep. So similarly, if I say that now you move upwards. So if a person moves upwards, upwards would mean one. Upwards would basically mean that your row number is basically being reduced by one. Why? Because if I go up here, if I go back to the grid, I can see that if I'm currently, so this would basically mean that if I'm currently at row of this and I say I want to move up, this is my position number 4. So I'm going to go to position number 3. So this means that my row is going to be reduced by 1. So the same logic comes up here that when you want to move up, your row is temporarily going to be reduced by 1. So I can say temp row is going to be reduced by 1. And that value is going to come from where? Player row minus 1. So player row minus 1. And likewise, if I say that a person inputs the value D, which would indicate that they want to go down, then it's going to be very similar to this case, but rather than it being reduced, what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the value by 1. Okay, so I can say that if the person inputs the option D, in that case you should basically add inside. But what if I say that a person inputs something like M, which is not a valid option? So in that case I need to put an otherwise statement, and within the otherwise statement I can put some sort of case that okay, if none of them are true, you might say that okay, error message equals to true, or maybe I say that there is an invalid option. So if it's otherwise, what we can do is at the top after the while loop, we can create a variable for this, for just one purpose, that if it has an error in the value input, I can set that to be false. So I can maybe make it something like move error, that if some invalid input has been coming up, I can basically make this true, which would mean that okay, there has been some error, so you should go back and retake the input. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat, and otherwise if none of the options are true, I can say that you set this move error to be as true. Move error to be what? To be true. Now while you have taken an input, I need to now check whether all these temporary column, temporary rows inputs which I have taken, are they even correct or not. So I'm first and foremost going to end the case statement. And what do I mean by the fact that whether they are correct or not? So what if I say that right now I'm standing at this position? Okay, so I might be standing somewhere up here at position number this, and I say that I want to make a left move. Is left move possible at this point? Is the left move possible at this point or not? It's not. Guys, I'm going to take all of your questions at the end. फिर मैं एक साथ ही explain करूँगा. अभी आप just listen up, okay? So at this point we cannot take a left move. Why? Because आप मुझे बताओ, if I want to make a move towards left side, is that even possible? Does that even make sense? It does not. Why doesn't it not make sense? Because there is nothing on the left hand side. So what we did was that whatever your position is, we stored that value in a temporary variable, temp row, okay, and temp column. And now we're going to check. Now what we're going to check is that if I say that this temporary column value becomes something like less than 1, or I say that the value of temp row becomes greater than 5, which means that you're sort of either exceeding the left or right, bottom or top hand side, then this means that there is an error. Because you cannot exceed the boundary, right? You cannot exceed the boundary. So if I have to not exceed the boundary, if I directly put the values like, you might have this question, sir, why didn't you directly do player column -1 up here? why didn't you do player column plus 1, or player row minus 1, player row plus 1? The reason was because I need to ensure I'm not fully sure whether this is valid or not, whether this can be possible move or not. And now I'm going to be basically checking the possible move. And how will I check the possible move? The possible move would be basically checked using the statement if, for example, I say checking valid moves. Okay, checking valid moves. Now what I'm going to do is I would be like, okay, if I say that my temporary column, if my temporary column, temp col, if this value of temporary column is less than 1, let's say you were at the extreme left hand side and you say I want to move to left, which would mean that the value becomes a 0, which does not even exist. If that happens, or I say your temp col value basically becomes greater than 5, or at the same time I say that you the same thing repeats for your row, you need to implement the same thing. So if like it happens for column, then what you need to do is you need to first and foremost say that yes, there was a move error. So you can create this, we had this move error variable, right? So I'm going to say that yes, move error equals to true, because yes, there was an error in basically moving there. Otherwise, if let's say it's within the range, let's say the column is like 3, which is perfectly fine. If it is within the range, I'm going to set my player column to be that specific one. So I'm going to say else player column. So I can do player column being initialized with what? Initialized with whatever the value in the temporary column is. Temp col. And once I'm done with this, I'm going to just put an end if to the if statement. So the if statement ends up here. So I'm just going to put end if. And now the same exact thing needs to be repeated for the rows. So now if I want to do it for the rows, again, I'm going to check whether the row number, the temporary row number, if it's less than, for example, 1, or if it's, let's say, greater than 5, which would mean that it's outside the valid range. In that case, I should bring up an error. Okay, I should bring up an error. Oh guys, why is my note-taking app lagging? The charging was a bit low in the morning, so I did not charge it. Maybe that's the issue. So yeah. So now we're going to paste that part up here. So we're going to put this up down here. I'm going to bring this to the top. I'm going to put this up here, and I'm going to say that if now my temporary row, if my temporary row is basically less than 1, or I say my temporary row that's basically greater than 5, then in that case, again, move error is a problem. Else if not, then this means that my row number is perfectly valid. It's within 1 and 5, which means it's perfectly fine. So if that's the case, in that case, I'm just going to put the value up here, and I might say that now change the player row to, so you change the player row to whatever your temporary row value is. And this is how you basically make a move and ensure that the value which is being inputted, it's within the perfect position. Now we're going to make a check. Now we're going to check whether this position to which the person moved, check if the position to which the new position the person with, if is this having the value of X or not. So I'm just going to say if grid newer position of person. So like grid person player row and player column. If it's equal to, if the value at this point is basically equal to X, what does this mean? This means that I found it. So if I found it, I'm going to just output what? Output you win. And I'm going to say the value of, what do we call it? Found is going to become true. So I can say then output you win. And then at the same time, I'm also going to say that this found, which I was at the top, to check that the moment I find it, I'm going to end the program. I'm going to set that to be as true, that yes, I found X. If I did not find X, if let's say it wasn't X, then I'm going to say else. If I say that there was some invalid move, if there was some sort of invalid moves. So for example, I say that the number of invalid moves are to be ignored. For example, I say that you make a move of left hand side up at this position. Okay, so you make a move towards the left. That's an invalid move. So for an invalid move, I don't want the valid move to be reduced. So like any invalid move should mean that, okay bro, repeat. But it should not be like, okay, you made an invalid move, now you just have 9 moves left because you made an invalid move. That's not my concern. So to ensure this concept in this too, what I can do is that I can make a check up here. I can see that if it's not equal to the player, I'm going to check that if this value of what do we call it, incorrect move or the move error, if this move error is equal to false, if move error is equal to false, I'm gonna repeat this once I'm complete it, okay, don't worry. फिर एक वो में when I'm gonna explain, you're gonna understand it. If the move error is basically equal to false, okay, if it's equal to false, in that case what I would do is that if I, let's say, had wasted one attempt on some invalid move, I'm going to award that move on my own, right? So I say that you move to the left, but left way nothing exists, so that's an invalid move. So what I can do is that, okay, don't worry, I know I deducted your move, but what if I give you an extra move? So what we do is that if an invalid move has been taken up, we're going to increase the available moves by 1. So I can say that num of moves can be increased by 1. So num moves is basically being increased by num moves plus 1. Num moves plus 1. And once done with this, I'm going to put an end if up here. And of course, I'm going to put an end if up here. And once you're done with this, let's say you checked it up, you found it, you not found it, whatever happens, you keep on repeating this, until a valid move has been taken. So remember this repeat statement we had at the top to see that if something incorrect has been inputted, or let's say an incorrect move has been taken, you should keep on repeating this again and again till a user inputs something valid. So this repeat up here, this is going to be basically repeated until I say that the move error value is basically what do we call it, move error value is basically false. So you need to keep on repeating until move error is equal to false. Error is equal to, बल्कि if I read the question clearly, the question does not ask anywhere कि अगर आपकी value is incorrect, you should basically give them the point. So because the question does not ask, this point up here perhaps would mean that if let's say you find the name perfectly fine, you output that you have won, okay, but if I say that there has been no error, because if move error is equals to false, this means that there has been no errors, okay, no errors, then what you are doing is that you are increasing the number of moves by 1. So like if I, let's say, had taken 0 moves, this means every valid move equals to 1 extra move. So this means valid move taken. So for every valid move taken, you're basically increasing the number of moves you have taken, and you need to keep on repeating this until I say if your move errors is basically equal to false. The moment it becomes true, there's a problem then, okay, and then this marks the end of your end while, that you're going to keep on repeating this until either I say that you found the person or found the variable, or I say that your number of moves, they become greater than the maximum allowed. So you can say this while, and up here I'm going to put an end while. And if let's say it does not even till this point output anything like you have won, what we can do at the end is we can make a condition and manually check that if the value of win is still true, false, this found, if I say that if found is still false, this means that you lost, you exited the loop but you were unable to find it. So I can basically put a last comment up here and basically check that if found is equal to false, if found is equal to false, if found is equal to false, then just output that you lost. Then output, what are we going to output? That you lost. So you're going to just write you lost or you lose, I guess, right? You kya tha upar? So the question stated, use the exact wordings, okay, whatever the question said. So question said that you say you lose, so we're going to write you lose up here. So I'm going to just write you, oh my bad, come down, and you're going to write then output you followed by lose, and you put an end if up here, and that marks the end of this 15 mark. Now what I'm going to do is I know a lot of you would have questions up here, and that you would be thinking, sir, ye kya ho raha hai? I'm like sort of cooked and everything. I'm going to basically do a quick recap. Okay, I'm gonna do a quick recap explaining everything, why and how is everything going and working, and then after that I'm gonna take your questions. Okay, after that I'm gonna take your questions and you're gonna understand what we are trying to do. Okay, so no need to rush. What I'm gonna do is no questions till I ask for questions. Okay, so for the now I will not allow any questions. But let me just quickly recap this, and then after that you can basically ask questions and I would be there to answer all of them. Okay, so yeah, let's get to it. So firstly, what the program expected us to do was that we need to create a program that basically has a grid, an empty grid. Okay, it has nothing inside it. So in this empty grid, everything is initialized with empty characters, empty characters. So the first action which we did was that we basically went through the entire array where we knew that there are going to be 5 rows and 5 columns. Okay, we went through it and we initialized it with empty stuff. You can see the code up here. Then what we did was we randomly generated a row number and we randomly generated a column number, and we sort of placed the value x at that random point. But we did this with the intention that it should not be the random row and random column should not be the starting position. So we made use of a repeat loop and we said that okay, you generate a random row number and at the same time you also generate a random column number, but you keep on repeating this until I say that your random row number is not equal to 1 and at the same time your random column number is not equal to 1, because random row for 1 and random column at 1, both of them are my starting position. So I can even add a comment up here that if I want I can write a comment starting position. Okay, so that the examiner understands why are you doing this. So we don't want it to be at the starting position. Now if it's not at the starting position and I know that the value is between 1 and 5 but not at the starting position, I go to that value at that specific in that array, I go to that position, I put the variable x up there. Now we're going to start off with the game. So now I know that every person who is going to be basically playing the Mariam, you can rewatch the stream from the start. I guess you joined in late because I really explained this in great detail. Why are we not multiplying with 5 and perhaps 4? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we're starting off with the game, right? So the number of maximum moves a person can take is what? The user can take maximum 10 moves. What's the player's starting position? It's 1. What's the player's column wise starting position? Again 1. So the person is starting at 1 position. How many moves have I taken? 0. Have I found the variable x? No. So false. So now I'm going to start the game. And the game is going to work in a way where I'm going to see that while I have not found the variable, and at the same time I say that the number of moves which I have taken, they are also less than 10, then you should play the game. So like, when will you be allowed to play a game? That's the condition up here. So you'll be allowed to play the game if I say that you haven't found the variable x till now, and at the same time I say that yes, you have possible moves available, that yes, you can make 2-3 more moves, so you are allowed to play. If not, then you should not, then the game has ended. Like for example, I say that you have already taken 10 moves, so this means tata bye bye, no need to take more moves, you are already done. Okay, so you should exit it out. But if let's say you have moves available and at the same time you haven't found it, then this means that you should jump and you should try to find it out. Now how do I find it out? Now I'm going to ask the user for some input. I'm going to ask the person that okay bro, you want to go left, you want to go right, you want to go up, you want to go down in the grid, right? You want to go wherever. Now what we did was we take an input. But now the problem is that while making use of the case of statement, the case of statement has one problem up here. The problem is that if a person enters something like L, the person can enter lowercase l and at the same time the person can enter uppercase L. Now that's an issue for me, right? Because why? If I like, let's say wrote this code where I'm only catering capital L, but the person comes us with lowercase l, that's also fine, right? But then that's a problem. So what we can do up here is that when the user is inputting the value of choice, I can convert that into uppercase manually. So you can do that either by saying input u case of choice, or you say that within the variable choice, you put the value of uppercase of choice. So both of them are perfectly fine. And then you check the case of choice. You check that if it's L, this means you move to left. If it's R, you move to right. If it's up or U, it means you move up. If it's D, you move down. But now the problem is there is also a possibility that if I say that okay, none of the options are true, then there should be something up here which tells me that okay, you made an invalid move. So to denote that invalid move, we have a variable with the name of move error. I can even add a comment up here and I can check invalid moves. Okay, add comments at the end when you have time. Okay, invalid moves. So this move error is going to become true only if I say that something invalid happened. Okay, you maybe made an invalid move, something like that. Sir, if instead of not found we write found is equal to false at the while condition, is that true? Yes, it's perfectly fine. Not found is equal to saying found is being equal to false. Okay, so it's the same thing. Now what you need to understand is that in the grid, we sort of can only move at a specific points, right? So like if I erase this part for you, there's a problem because we can move anywhere. I know that I can move anywhere. I might be able to, if I'm, let's say, at position number this, which is what, if I'm, let's say, position number this, which might be 1 2 3 4, row number 4 and column number 2. If I say that I want to move to the left hand side, what would this mean? That if I go to the left hand side, I come up here, right? This means my column number is basically reduced by 1. So a left side move would mean that the column is being reduced by 1. Whereas a right side move would mean that the column value is being increased by 1. We were at 2. So if I shift up here, I say that the value becomes as 3. So I have increased it by 1. So the column value increases when you move right and reduces when you move left. Only the column number. But similarly, if I move upwards, upward would basically means that I'm reducing the row number by 1, and downward would mean that I'm basically increasing the row number by 1. So you can clearly see that my row number goes from 4 to 5 and 4 to 3. But now there is one problem. What if I say that I'm at a position like this and the person inputs something like left move? If the person inputs a left move at this point, the only problem is that can you move to the left hand side? There is nothing up here. But because we are just doing that, you're subtracting the values. I know that the row number or the column number up here is 1. So if I do 1 minus 1, my program would say that, okay, it's a 0. It's going to store 0. But we don't have any 0th position up here because it's starting from 1 and it's also starting from 1. There is nothing like a 0 position. So to avoid this scenario, where you might, God forbid, go into the 0th position, what we're going to do is we create some temporary variables. So I say that, okay, we create a temporary row number and we create a temporary column number. This temporary row number, let's say I'm going to move to this left side. So I'm going to put this value in the temporary column one. Okay, so I'm going to put this into temporary column. And similarly, I'm going to put the value, let's say you move down, and we're going to put that into temporary row 1. Now I know that whatever the value inside temporary row and column is, it should be between what? It should be between 1 and 5, because it's similar to saying you might be up here and you say I want to move to right. So this means that you're going to the 6th one. That's even not possible. So if I move to the right side, this means my temporary column value is going to become 6, right? It's going to become 6. But now I'm going to check that if my temporary column value is less than 1 or if it's greater than 5, this means that there has been an error. There has been a wrong move. So to indicate that wrong move, I'm going to say that move error will be set to true. So I can say that if temporary column becomes less than 1, or at the same time I say that the temporary column becomes greater than 5, which means that out of the grid boundary, you're going outside the grid boundary. You go out of the possible range between 1 and 5. So you say that yes, I took an invalid move. So I set the move error to be true. Similarly, I first check this for the column and then I check this for the row. But let's say it's not less than 1, or at the same time it's not greater than 5, which means that it's within the perfect range of 1 to 5. So any move between 1 to 5 is perfectly fine. Now when I've validated and I have ensured and I have checked that yes, the move is 100% valid, what I can do right now is that in the player column position, now where the player was actually standing previously, so let's say the player was originally at this position, and I say that you move to left hand side. Okay, so the player was somewhere up here and you want to move to the left hand side. So first I put this value of moving towards left in the column and row temporary one. I check whether it's valid or not, and if it is valid, I would be like, okay, this value is stored where? It's stored in player column. Okay, so I would say that, okay, now you change the player column value to 2. And this value being reduced by 1 is similar to saying that whatever the value in temporary column was, you put that value inside it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that value inside it. Now, if you want to add a message the way you all are saying, you can do it. It's not compulsory, but yeah, if you want to do it, that's better though. You can add a comment, message up here. So you might put something like output, and you might say invalid move taken. Okay. And if let's say it's not an invalid move, you put that position in there. Similarly, you check the same thing for row. You put the value in the column, in the row, what do we call it, temporary variable. You put it there, you check it one by one. If it's valid, you put the player row at that position. If it's not valid, you again say that move error is equal to true, and this means that there is going to be a problem. So sir, after sir, repeat loop नहीं use करना until tempo is greater than नहीं. So the program nowhere mentioned that अगर आपने invalid move लिया, you need to repeat it, because the question did not ask you to repeat until a valid move has been taken. We are not doing it. So you made an invalid move. This means you have wasted your choice, your probability of making a valid move. So you had 10 moves, you wasted one of those moves, because the question nowhere mentions this. So we are going to go with this way. Okay. Similarly, now if I know that, okay, I got the correct player row, I got the correct player row, I got the correct player column. Now I'm going to go to the new position of where the player is, the new position in the grid array, and I'm going to see whether in the new position, at the new position, is the value X existing or not. So I go to the new position, and at that new position, I compare it with the value X. If it matches, then this means congratulations, we have found the value. So the questions clearly mention that when you find the value, you just output, you win. And we say that, okay, I found it. So this while loop, which was running all the way, which is again and again going to run until I find a value, or I say that the number of moves have been exceeded. So if I find the value, I'll be like, okay, perfectly fine, I found the value, good. So I should just end it up. So at that point, what I can do is I can set the value of found to be as true. But if let's say it's not equal, then what I can do is I can see that if move errors is equal to false, this would basically means that if let's say there has been no invalid move taken, or like every move taken has been valid, so this means you increase the one attempt of move you have taken. So we increase the number of moves taken by the user. But let's say there was an error with move errors. Let's say move error was true. In that case, you do not increase the number of moves. So we assume that, okay, if let's say a person XYZ took a wrong move, so we give them the chance that, okay, you took a wrong move towards left side, which does not exist. No problem. I will not count it as if you made a wrong move. We're just going to take a valid move to be counted as an increment in the number moves. So if I make a valid right side move, then I'm going to say that yes, I took one move. But if I let's say I took a move which is not valid, which is 100% wrong, in that case I will not say that, okay, I'm wasting your opportunity. How do I check that? I'm like, okay, if move error is equal to true, which means that you took some invalid move, then you do not increase the value of the number of moves you have taken. So you don't increase the value of moves you have taken. And similarly, I say that if let's say it's false, which means that every move taken has been perfectly valid, you say that now, yes, you took a valid move, so we increase the number of moves by one. And then this keeps on repeating until I say that your move error is false, which means that every step you have taken is basically perfectly valid. And then you end this when you either find it, or when I say that the number of moves you have taken, they now become 10. So the moment they become 10, until number of moves is equal to 10 cannot be done. No, it cannot be done. You know why? Because the number of moves starts from 0. It starts from 0. Less than 9 until move repeat until it's less than 10. So 9 is the last one, and until it's equal to 10. Less than 9, less than 10 is still okay. That's also fine. If you want to write it that way, if it's equal to 10, that would also make sense. Okay, that's also fine. Okay. So now, if you want to put that up here, you're going to do it. And now once we come out, it's either going to come out of the loop when I say that the found value has been true, which means that yes, I found it. Or I'm going to say that it's going to come out when I say that the number of moves I've taken, they have become 10. If they have become 10, this means that the found is still false because I haven't found it. That's the only reason why it became 10. So now I'm going to see that if found even at this point is false, then this means yes, output you lose, and then you end the if statement, and that marks the end of this 15 mark. Clear, everybody? So if I use my logic, how many marks can be gained depends upon the logic. So you can watch my chapter 7 and chapter 8 playlist, watch all these marathons, watch all the pseudocode guides. They're going to be helpful, inshallah. Can we add choice 10 minus choice अगर एक choice waste होती है और x नहीं मिलता? नहीं, तो choice waste क्यों होगी? अगर आप इसको इस तरीके से मरियम, इफ यू थिंकिंग कि ओके मैं नंबर ऑफ मूव्स नहीं करनी चाहती, बट आई कैन डू इसके मेरे टोटल नंबर ऑफ मूव्स दैट आई कैन टेक आर 10, तो आई कैन रिड्यूस दैट बाय 1, लाइक 10 minus 1 9, 9 minus 1 8, जब वो 0 हो जाए then I would be like okay I have reached, and that's also perfectly fine. So you can have multiple logics to it. Sir, is there any pattern to predict? Nah, not at all. So now I want every one of you, I'm going to reduce the timing setting, so I'm going to make it 30 seconds for you all to ask any questions you might have up here. This is the last 15 marker for our session, and I hope it was helpful and that you guys got a chance to learn. Sir, in declaration, can we do, for example, declare number, player, value, choice, integer? Yes, you can, given that all number, player, value, and choice, all four of them are going to be integer. You cannot do something like declare number, player, string, comma, value, choice, integer. That's wrong. But yes, you can do it this way. Sir, the question of choosing uppercase is given in MS. Yeah, me. Remember, देखो, this is your common sense. Okay, so if I say you are creating a program, आपने input करना है option, right? It could be A, B, C, D. अब A, B, C, D तो capital भी हो सकता है, लेकिन A, B, C, D smaller भी हो सकता है. So how do you ensure that the program accepts both the value? या तो आप करो capital A, capital B, capital C, capital D, then lower A, lower B, lower C, lower D. Yeah, you take the input and you convert that into capital, so it works for all of them. But still, if you miss this part, it won't be like a very big problem. The main thing is the other logic. If you do that, you would be fine. Sir, move errors will be true when you increase the move. No, move error is only going to be true when you make an invalid move. So like, for example, you try to make a move that does not exist. So like, let's say you make a move towards left hand side, towards like you are at the exact extreme left hand side, and you say I want to move left, which does not even exist. You go to such a position. So if you move to a point where you get outside the boundary of the rows and at the same time outside the boundary of the columns, then you say that yes, I took an invalid move. So you set move error to be true. सर हर 15 मार्कर, यार ये मैंने कितनी दफा बता दिया, अगर क्वेश्चन में लिखा हुआ है कि 15 मार्कर का के डिक्लेयर करना है, सिर्फ तब करना है, अगर क्वेश्चन में नहीं लिखा तो नहीं करना. Sir, I didn't understand the repeat loops purpose from the start. So from the start, you're referring to this repeat one, the repeat, this repeat until for the random generation one. Whose question was that? SUS wali bhai. आपका ये question. Sir, can you write pseudocode of linear cell, bubble sort, Igcse in the 15 marker? Yes, of course you can. Sometimes a question can also come up for this. Sir, can I ask why do you set timer? Where do I set a timer? I don't set a timer though. Sir, past paper की video upload कर दिए गए. Okay, I'm gonna upload one today and one tomorrow, inshallah. While not found, can't repeat it. While not found. While not found. ये किधर है? While not found. While not found वाली तो लॉजिक कहीं पे है ही नहीं. Where is while not found? ये while जो, अच्छा ये while not found. Okay. So what this means is कि भाई आपने गेम तब तक खेलनी है, आप तब तक गेम खेलो जब तक या आपका वेरिएबल मिल ना जाए, या मैं बोलूँगा आपके नंबर ऑफ मूव्स मैक्स मूव से ग्रेटर ना हो. while loop कब चलता है? while loop runs when this condition becomes false and at the same time this condition becomes false. अगर ये कंडीशन भी ट्रू है एंड ये कंडीशन भी ट्रू है तो आपका जो भी कोड है वो चलेगा. सो अगर आपके फाउंड भी फॉल्स है और आपके नंबर ऑफ मूव्स भी लेस देन मैक्स मूव्स है, तो अगर ये दोनों कंडीशन ट्रू है तो आपने गेम खेलनी है. बट लेट्स से आपका फाउंड ट्रू हो गया, विच मींस आपको मिल गया, तो आप ये लूप नहीं चलाओगे. सिमिलरली आपके 10 बारियां होंगी, आपको ना भी मिले बट 10 बारियां होगी, आपने लूप नहीं चलाने, यू आर गोना एग्जिट इट. Sir, what to revise before exam? Good question. So I'm going to make a reel on this too. But I would say just open up marking schemes and question papers, और जितने ज़्यादा आप वो कर सकते हो आप देखते जाओ. सर वैसे x को फाइंड करें कि लीनियर सर्च या लीनियर सर्च तो नहीं है. लीनियर सर्च में तो आप बारी 1 by 1 देखते हो. यहाँ पे तो आप प्लेयर के इनपुट के मुताबिक लेफ्ट राइट ऊपर नीचे मूव करें एंड यू कंपेयर इट. Why is for loop for column inside the for loop for row? Because we are initializing it at the top. Initializing of a 2-dimensional array happens this way कि आप पहले एक रो को पकड़ते हो, उस एक रो में सारी कॉलम्स के वैल्यू सेट करते हो, then you go to, like it's similar to saying कि पहले I'm going to come to this row and I'm going to set a value up here, up here, up here, up here, up here. Then I'm going to go to the second one, then I do it up here, up here, up here, up here, up here, and this moves on. So it's like the logic behind always initializing a 2-dimensional array. Nothing new and nothing unique at my end. This is how you initialize a 2-dimensional array. Sir, move error will be true when you increase when you do not waste the player move as we initialize. सर मूव एरर विल बी ट्रू व्हेन यू इंक्रीज द मूव। नहीं, ये मैंने किधर बोला है? मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ कि मूव एरर आपका सिर्फ तब ट्रू होगा जब कोई गलत मूव लिया होगा, जब आपने कोई गलत मूव लिया होगा। अगर गलत मूव नहीं लिया तो मूव एरर कभी ट्रू नहीं होगा। when you increase the move when you do not। अच्छा, अब ये जो आपकी बात है ना, वो ये मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि अगर लेट से मूव एरर, यहाँ पे आपको मुझे समझ आ गई, कंफ्यूज्ड अप हियर। सो अगर मैं बोलूँ आपके मूव एरर ट्रू है, दिस मीन्स कि आपने मूव नंबर ऑफ मूव्स को इंक्रीज नहीं करना। नंबर ऑफ मूव्स इंक्रीज करने का दिस बेसिकली मीन्स, ओहो स्ट्रीम सॉफ्ट। So there was a small lag इस वजह से I stopped up ताकि आपका पॉइंट रह ना जाए। So understand कि मूव एरर इक्वल्स टू फॉल्स मीन्स कि आपकी वैल्यू सही है। अब ये ऐसी बात है कि मैं आपको बोलूं कि हर सही सवाल करने पे आपको एक चॉकलेट मिलेगी। फॉर एवरी करेक्ट मूव यू आर गोना गेट वन चॉकलेट। सो अगर नंबर ऑफ मूव्स आर द नंबर ऑफ चॉकलेट्स यू आर गेटिंग, सो इफ आई से दैट मूव एरर मीन्स कि आपने कोई मिस्टेक की है, सो इफ मिस्टेक इज इक्वल टू फॉल्स then I increase your chocolate by one. I increase one chocolate. But if move errors is true, which means yes आपने गलती की है, तो do I give you a chocolate? No, I don't, right? So फिर ये then statement execute ही नहीं होती, so your number of moves are not increased. Just to mean that if let's say someone take an invalid move, तो हम ये count नहीं करेंगे कि यार this person took an invalid move, उस बारी को हम ignore कर देंगे। सही है? इंशाल्लाह आप लोग भी दुआ मेरे लिए करना, really important। सही है? Sir, is there any harder question than this? I personally would have heard that this was the hardest one. So this and the May June 23 paper number 22 उसका question, ये दो मुझे मुश्किल generally लगे थे, but this wasn't that difficult to be honest. Okay. Sir, the repeat loop inside the while loop. अच्छा, the repeat loop inside the while loop. This one. Okay, so you're talking about this. So this repeat loop is going to run like, for example, I say कि आपने ना कोई invalid move enter कर दिया। For example, I say you input LRUD में you input something like, for example, for example, I say that you input क्या नाम है, some wrong move, okay, some wrong move. So now if you inputted something like a wrong move, तो उस केस में तो मसला है ना, right? So if there is an invalid move, तो हम फिर ऊपर जाएंगे, I'm gonna recheck it. So if there is an invalid move coming up, so I'm going to go back to the top and I'm going to again go through the case of choice and do the same thing again. So वैसे if we ask user to re-enter move until no incorrect move, could we have extra marks? Extra marks तो नहीं है, but yeah, if you want to do it and the logic makes sense, कोई मसले की बात नहीं है। Increase the move. So sir, flowchart के लिए I'm gonna upload just one. I guess I've created even a video for flowchart, so you can just watch that most probably. So the class is done. You guys can leave, to be honest. Just give me a second. So my order also came up. So, but yeah. So, sir, can I use until found equals to true instead of move error equals to false? Found is something we are checking कि बंदे को x मिल गया या नहीं. Okay. So use found only when you say that आपको x मिल गया. तो आप मूव एरर तो इसके लिए नहीं कर रहा कि मुझे x मिला है या नहीं. मूव एरर में इसलिए कर रहा हूँ कि यार आपने जो मूव लिया वो गलत तो नहीं है. तो अगर वो गलत है उसके लिए मैंने मूव एरर बनाए हुए. अगर आपको मिल गया वो फाउंड है, तो फाउंड तो वैसे भी फॉल्स रहनी है जब तक आपको एक्स ना मिले. तो इवन तो आप कोई गलत मूव ले लो, फाउंड तो स्टिल फॉल्स रहनी, तो उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा. सो इस वजह से हम एवरी गलत मूव के लिए हमने एक अलग से मूव एरर वेरिएबल बना दिया. If the move is valid, then the move count will be plus. This is the programmer's demand. Yes, so if the move is valid, आप बोल देते हो कि yes, this person took one valid move, so move count increases by one. But if let's say it does not, in that case you ignore it. What is that double-headed arrow for near case? That's just to indicate that this part is basically equal to. So you can write it either this way or you can write it this way. It doesn't make a difference. It's the same thing. Exactly. It's sort of like a validation check. So that's everything for today. This was the most difficult 15 marker in your syllabus. And this officially marks the end of our 15 marker journey. This marks the end of our May-June 2026 classes. For all the students from my past paper session, this officially marks the end of our past paper session. I wish every one of you a very best of luck and that everybody had a lovely time learning from each other. And of course, I wish that I was some sort of help to you all. We did try our best. I tried my best to ensure that you all understand the concepts as much as possible. I hope it was something which helped you all. And of course, remember me in your prayers. Best of luck. Inshallah, you guys are going to cook those papers. You're going to go and cook those exams. Ameen, Ameen, all of us. And just to let you know, our session for AS level computer science will be inshallah ta'ala starting from the 1st of July. So if anybody of you is interested in studying AS level computer science and want to be a part of our journey, you can fill out the form, okay, once you're done with exams. Similarly, our O level computer science session for the May, June 27 and October, November 26 have started off. The form is live and the session's first class is going to be from the 6th of June, inshallah. And if you have any junior of yours, any friend, cousin, family members of yours who would be going with O-level CS at this point, you can recommend our form. You can recommend my form to them. You can give them my number, and it would be great that if you can recommend ourselves to them, and we can ensure that they all have a lovely session, so that जैसे आप लोग को बिल्कुल end time पे मैं मिलो. I get this message so much that सर हमें बिल्कुल आप end में मिले, काश पहले मिल जाते. They get me at the start so that they can get those A stars inshallah. सर रिजल्ट वाले दिन लाइव स्ट्रीम रखेंगे इंशाल्लाह, रखेंगे इंशाल्लाह. सर इफ आई वॉच योर प्लेलिस्ट देख लो, हो जाएगा फायदा इंशाल्लाह, क्यों नहीं होगा. So take care everybody. This is everything at my end. This is your computer science teacher Sir Mohammad Maaz Munir officially signing off for the May-June 2026 session. A very best of luck to everybody. Take care everyone. Inshallah see you guys in the group some other day. Allah Hafiz.